The Saw films have always been known for their heavy reliance on flashbacks, but how much of the running time is really taken up by them? Let's find out. The first Saw film largely takes place in a bathroom, with Gordon and Alex. All Saw films except the last are divided into a cop plot and a trap plot, and most of the times one of those two take place partially or wholly in a flashback. In Saw 1's case, the cop stuff is entirely in flashback, as are the 3 previous traps shown in the film. The first bathroom scene takes about 10 minutes, then there is a long sequence once Gordon figures out that Jigsaw was the one who had trapped them. This includes the grisly results from a few traps, the introduction of Zepp, Gordon being interrogated by the police as a suspect, Amanda's trap, and finally the kidnapping of Gordon, interrupted only by the occasional reminder about the bathroom situation. There are multiple cases of flashbacks in flashbacks here, but that gets so messy it's difficult to quantify the actual length, so we'll stick to a binary for now. We go back to the bathroom for a while where there is a decent length argument, then Adam throws a rock at some mirrors, revealing they're being watched. There's a bit more discussion about their lives and how to get out of the situation, as well as revealing the fact that Gordon's family is also involved in the game, threatened by a, as of yet unseen figure. It then shows someone observing them, which is revealed to be David Tapp. There are further flashbacks which reveal the police found Jigsaw's headquarters, then sent 2 people there to investigate. It did not go well. There's a long sequence which includes Jigsaw, not one of his apprentices, performing some hidden blade techniques that don't really fit a dying 60-year-old, as well as some neat little dioramas, a theme carried into later films. We go back to more game stuff, as the escape room from hell continues, and Gordon is taunted by a phone call, revealing another flashback, this time how he got captured. Then it's back to the game, then to how Adam was kidnapped, as well as his profession. We bounce back and forth for a little while, learning that Adam spied on Gordon for Tapp, and then all the pieces are finally in place for the last act of the film, which is almost entirely in the present. There's a long sequence involving the now revealed Zepp, who has kidnapped Gordon's family, as well as the police, and then Gordon and Adam desperately trying to figure out their game. After a few chases, a bit of voluntary amputation, and some bloodshed, we get to the final twist, and a huge sequence of flashbacks, which will become a staple in the franchise. It turns out Zepp has just been playing a game, and the real mastermind was the body on the floor, John Kramer, the cancer patient mentioned a few times. Anyway, with the final sequence wrapped up, where does that leave us? The answer is 40 minutes and 23 seconds of flashbacks, 57 minutes and 34 non, or approximately 41.2% of the film is flashbacks. This excludes studio logos, credits, and similar. This is a high total, but we've still got a ways to go. Saw 2 begins with an extended sequence showing first a trap, then the police investigating it, ending up with Jigsaw actually being arrested. Then the trap plot is introduced, with a bunch of people stuck in a house. This takes about 15 minutes. Incidentally, this wasn't originally written as a Saw film, but adapted to be one after the script wasn't gaining any traction. For much of the film, the game is being broadcast on TV screens, with the cops watching, interrogating Jigsaw to try to discover where it's happening. However, there is a twist, just like all Saw films, that the entire thing is pre-recorded and already happened a few days ago. This means the entire trap sequence is flashbacks. The structure is much more simple than Saw 1's, alternating between the 2 plots every 10 or so minutes. We get additional information about Jigsaw's motives and methods here, and more of Tobin Bell, which is always a plus. This also includes Origin Story 2 for him, which is of course told through a flashback. Not only did he get incurable cancer, but he had a car crash suicide attempt, and that's when he became Jigsaw. At the end of the film, there's a lot of tricky editing, where it alternates between Amanda and Matthew's son running away from Xavier, while Matthews is also running around with a gun in the same place. Of course, it's later revealed he's a few days late, and all the shouting isn't doing anyone any good. At the end there is the final twist, because of course there is. That not only has the game already been run, but Amanda was a mole and Jigsaw's apprentice. This is accompanied by an extended flashback sequence, including all the things in the film that hinted at these twists. Due to the traps being a major focus of the film, and technically being a flashback, that makes Saw's 2 time 46 minutes and 58 seconds, and the non-flashback only 40 minutes and 55 seconds. This means that 53.4% of Saw 2 is flashbacks. That's a new record, but I don't think it's going to last. Saw 3 is a much more traditional structure than the previous 2 films. It begins right where the last left off, with the detective stuck in the dark bathroom. He succeeds in his test, however, and seemingly escapes. We then go to the cop plot, where they find a Jigsaw game that was apparently impossible to actually beat. This is shown through flashbacks, although it's not a particularly long sequence. There are 3 main threads in the film. The first is Jigsaw being operated on, which delves into his relationship with Amanda. The second is the trap, featuring slow-ass motherfucking Jeff wandering his way through a personalized obstacle course. The third is the cops trying to investigate what's going on, although that's much less of a focus this time. We have to define the rules a little bit here, as there are a few instances where photos are shown that are kind of like a flashback, but I don't count any still images, only actual video. There is still a decent length sequence featuring Jeff wandering around his family home and then being kidnapped, but otherwise all of his scenes are basically in real time. When it comes to Jigsaw and Amanda, however, there are a number of scenes showing how their relationship developed, giving a behind-the-scenes look at the trap plots of 1 and 2, as well as revealing how Amanda killed Matthews after he escaped, which ties into the ending of this film, as it's revealed that Jigsaw's been testing Amanda the entire time, and she failed, too violent and destructive to be his apprentice. There's also a couple of brief flashbacks from John of a woman in a park, which is later revealed to be his ex-wife. In the prequel comic, she was originally just a girlfriend, but the series loves its retcons. Anyway, the rest of the plot of the film happens, and Jeff finally finishes his set of tasks, and then basically everyone dies, which leads to a dying montage of flashbacks from both John and Amanda's point of view, as well as a few random moments for the rest of the film thrown in there as a treat. In total, Saw 3 had just under 21 minutes of flashbacks, out of a runtime of 1 hour and 48 minutes, making it only 19.5% flashback, the least of the series so far. Jumping right into Saw 4, they wanted the viewer to know that Jigsaw is dead, like super dead, and he won't be coming back. To highlight this, the film starts with an autopsy of him that lasts about 5 minutes. Then we head into the cop plot and trap plot, but there's a big twist here, which we have to jump to. Basically, the entirety of the film takes place at the same time, or just before the events of Saw 3. This means the autopsy scene, which is the present, takes place significantly after the rest of the film, which also means that basically everything is a flashback. I could dive into the specifics of the multiple levels of flashback inside it, but I won't, and we're actually just going to jump right to the numbers, because they tell the story better than I could. Including the autopsy scene at the beginning and the end of the film, the non-flashbacks take up 5 minutes and 33 seconds, and the rest of the film, all 1 hour and 23 minutes of it, are flashbacks, for a total of 93.7% of the film. I don't think that's going to be beat, ever. There's an argument that the first scene of Saw 5 is a flashback. It's a trap that was prepared around the time of Saw 1, but in this case we'll count it as part of the main timeline, as it still moves in a linear fashion through time and space. After that, we jump to immediately the end of 3/4, and follow the characters from that for a little while. In this case, the cop plot is the section with flashbacks, whereas the trap plot is entirely real time. While they discuss previous events, everyone in the group was involved with burning a building down. None of it's shown. In the police world, however, Agent Strom is trying to figure out who Jigsaw's accomplices are, as he's sure it wasn't just Amanda. This involves wandering through old crime scenes, reliving memories that he doesn't actually possess, and that means flashbacks. Since the twist of the last film was that Hoffman was Jigsaw's apprentice, this film does the same thing as Saw 3, and shows the two of them working on traps together, developing their relationship, and in general adding more lore. There is a solid 8-minute sequence depicting Hoffman's fake Jigsaw trap, the pair meeting, and discussions of morality and such. Overall, however, it's not super flashback heavy. Even the ending has a few cuts, but in general, it's focused on the now, with the occasional montage, and there's no big twist at the end of this one. In total, there are just 20 minutes of flashbacks, and an hour and 10 minutes non, for around 22.5%. Comparing it to the others, it's the second least, straddling the line with Saw 3. Next is Saw 6, arguably the best since the original. It begins with a trap, but since we're following linear time, independent of the other films, this isn't counted as a flashback. There's a brief one just after the credits, and then the plot progresses immediately after the end of 5. There's no huge twist in this one, although there are brief flashbacks to show the history of the insurance guy before getting to the main plot. That mainly consists of Hoffman being suspicious and eventually murdering a bunch of people. This is all in real time, however, with the occasional flashback to reveal a minor plot point. Jill becomes more of a character, reflecting on her life with John, and this includes a few extended scenes with him discussing his philosophy with her, as well as an introduction to Amanda. Once we get to the main trap plot, however, there is a large uninterrupted section, as main insurance guy has to wander around trying to help his employees not die, or in some cases choosing which one dies. Jigsaw's philosophy has never been more suspect. There's a couple more flashbacks from Hoffman's point of view as we see his friction with Amanda, as well as finally revealing the contents of a letter which was shown in Saw 3. Now that's good soap opera. There's a few more scenes with John and the insurance man, basically showing that he deserved it. Then there's the final section of flashbacks, which goes through literally everyone the insurance man has dealt with in the traps for a few frames at a time. It is a ludicrous amount of bouncing back and forth, and followed up by Hoffman struggling with his trap while dealing with a similar deluge of flashbacks. Despite the sheer number of them, the total time for all the flashbacks in the film is 19 minutes and 11 seconds, with Non taking up 1 hour and 6 minutes. That's a percentage of 22.3, just below Saw 5. Saw 7, the final chapter. From a certain point of view. The film starts with a flashback, but given our rules it doesn't count, as the film pretty much runs in linear order from the start, until the 22-minute mark, when there is a very brief bit of a trap. This keeps up for the majority of the film, focusing mostly on Hoffman just outwitting people and murdering everyone. The trap plot features a Jigsaw faker who pretended to survive a trap and got rich off it. His whole publicity stunt gets on all the action, and everyone dies. There are a few flashbacks outlining his schemes, but the film is mostly linear. Hoffman gets a few moments outlining his history, but they're very brief. The longest sequence is the end of the film, when there's a boom twist. The Dr. Gordon has been a Jigsaw apprentice the whole time, and he's been spying on Hoffman with the intent to murder him if he gets out of hand. Sorry, not murder, put in an inescapable situation so that he dies. The film is trash, even by Saw's usual standards. And maybe it was due to the lack of flashbacks. There are only 7 minutes and 22 seconds, compared to 1 hour and 17 minutes of Non, for a total of 8.7% flashback. By far the lowest. Jigsaw came out 7 years later, when it seemed like the series was dead and buried. Not so, but they certainly run out of twists by this point. This one has a typical trap plot / cop plot division, but just like Saw 2 there's a twist, that the entire game is a flashback, in this case carried out about 10 years earlier. This means that in any of the sequence with the traps, it's a flashback. Aside from that, we've got another twist at the end of the film, a secret apprentice who's been there the whole time, number 4. This entails its own sequence of flashbacks, showing how he was working with Jigsaw since the start. Does it make sense? No, but by this point in the franchise, no one really cared. There's another section of flashbacks showing how the new secret apprentice has been hijacking the cops' investigation the whole time as well, creating a scapegoat and an alibi. Due to the trap cop division, there are 44 minutes of flashback and 40 minutes of Non, for 52.1% flashback, just behind Saw 2. Spiral is half a Saw movie, so we'll do half a count. It goes 26 minutes without a flashback, then has the briefest one. There are a few flashbacks to Chris Rock's earlier time as a cop, another one of a trap that we only saw half of, and the classic twist revelation featuring a slew of them. Turns out the guy we thought was dead wasn't, because we didn't actually see his trap. He's been working the whole time to sabotage the cops, faking being a Jigsaw killer. If that sounds familiar, please let me know. The film isn't quite a Saw film, so it only has 7 minutes and 50 seconds of flashbacks, and 1 hour and 18 minutes of Non. That's 9%, just over Saw 3D's total. It's definitely better than that film, but not by a lot. Saw 10 only came out this year, so we'll cover it briefly. It is basically no flashbacks, with only the occasional reminder of events previous in the film, and none to expand on the background or show a twist. It lives in the now. This means that it only has 1 minute and 30 seconds of flashback, which is just over 1%. A series low by a significant magnitude. So that's the franchise. Let's take a look at them in comparison. Saw 10 is by far the lowest, and 4 is by far the highest, with the rest somewhere in between. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This year I'll be trying to be more consistent with weekly releases, so subscribe if you want more horror content. Be well.